In June 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, officially recognizing June 19th and the abolition of enslavement as a federal holiday. Now, as part of its first official celebration of Juneteenth, Kennesaw State University seeks to honor this chapter in the long history of emancipation.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Frederick Douglass, 1852.
After years of activism by abolitionists like Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass, on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all those who had been enslaved in the Confederacy were now free.
Records and manuscripts from our university archives and special collections department present the historical context of Juneteenth and provide evidence of local celebrations. Today, we're going to be looking at an issue of Frederick Douglass's paper from our rare book collection. So, hi Sophia.
Hi.
So Frederick Douglass's paper was an abolitionist newspaper, and here we have an issue from February 17th, 1854. So very exciting. So Frederick Douglass's paper, as you can imagine from the title, was founded by Frederick Douglass, and it was in circulation until 1860. So this newspaper is considered one of the most important Black abolitionist newspapers during the antebellum period. And what I like most about this paper is we can see the work of abolitionists taking place. So right here, we have a contributor of the newspaper was writing about a lecture that Frederick Douglass gave, an abolitionist lecture that he gave in New Hampshire. And he talks about how eloquent Frederick Douglass was and how much he captivated the audience. And he also talked about that everyone who came to the event stayed the entire time, and no one left. And so what I think is interesting is we see roughly 10 years before the Emancipation Proclamation is signed, we see, again, the work that abolitionists, and specifically Black abolitionists, were doing to end the institution of slavery in America.
Despite this proclamation, President Lincoln had no way of enforcing the policy within the Confederate States. In reality, emancipation would take place gradually, as Union forces made their way deeper into the South and as enslaved men and women liberated themselves by escaping to Union-controlled territories. Word of the abolition of enslavement eventually reached Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, when Union soldiers announced,
The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere.
Upon hearing the news of their emancipation, the Black Galveston community did not remain quiet. Instead, they began celebrating.
Well, one of the things we have to remember is that when the Juneteenth decree was read, that there was still outright rebellion and war taking place. Although we tend to think about General Lee surrendering at Appomattox, bringing the end to the Civil War, there was actually other armies that had not yet surrendered, and outright rebellion continued even after President Johnson declared the hostilities at an end in August of 1866. So the decision of formerly enslaved persons to affirm their freedom and affirm their independence amidst the war and amidst these conflicts really affirms their desire to be part of American society, their desire to affirm their own humanity, and the faith that they at some point would be free, although the circumstances around them did not yet fully dictate that experience.
The festivities in Texas grew the following year with the support of the Freedmen's Bureau. Over time, Black communities around the country joined in the celebrations, referring to the event variously as Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, Black Independence Day, and Juneteenth.
So there's a wide range of ways that people have chosen to celebrate emancipation. In the Midwest, often you hear the term Jubilee. In the Northeast is when I was first introduced to a Juneteenth celebration as such. And the reason for that is varied as the different migration patterns of folk, the different traditions coming in contact with local traditions gave different forms of expression. So in some instances, folks tended to get together in large congregations and celebrate. And in other instances, they tended to be much more smaller in family units. But all of them affirmed really the same underlying principle, this aspiration for freedom, this aspiration for autonomy. And many of at the core, saw at all of these holidays kind of this thread that underscored humanity and dignity.
What kind of activities did they have at the Juneteenth celebration? Were there panels, live performances?
Yes, all of that. It's a whole weekend. So generally it takes place on the Marietta Square, and they often have things like a jazz festival. They've got vendors from different companies for people for all ages. And then they also have a gospel fest. Sometimes they even have a health fair. So it's a lot of different activities for everyone to enjoy.
Juneteenth is more than a celebration of the abolition of enslavement. The day's events also emphasize Black history with guest speakers, educational programs, and community members recalling their own experiences. The holiday also became a way to draw attention to the ongoing challenges faced by marginalized communities. Just after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, the Poor People's Campaign organized the Solidarity Day March on Juneteenth. In 2001, the Juneteenth celebration in Raleigh, North Carolina was organized by Black, Latino, and labor organizers as a show of unity in their fights for equality and justice. And in 2020, Juneteenth overlapped with nationwide Black Lives Matter protests against police brutality. After being celebrated by many Black Americans for over 150 years, Juneteenth was finally recognized as a federal holiday in 2021.
Because the holiday falls on a Sunday this year, KSU will celebrate Juneteenth on June 17th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the campus green. The participants will be grounded in the history of the celebration and the relentless pursuit of freedom as well as equality after the reading of General Order Number 3. We will not do the holiday justice if we do not highlight the celebratory and joyous nature of Juneteenth. And so we will bring the community together through music, food, and artistic expression.
Juneteenth is just one of many ways Black history is being commemorated and celebrated. Here at KSU, I encourage you to visit the Bentley Rare Book Museum and the KSU Archives, where we have collections highlighting Black experiences and voices. Outside the university, you can visit the National Center for Civil and Human Rights or explore the Spelman College Museum of Fine Art in Atlanta, Georgia. Music enthusiasts will enjoy the recently opened National Museum of African American Music in Nashville, Tennessee. If you've never visited the Equal Justice Initiative's National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, I encourage you to make a trip to this impactful site. And in 2016, the Smithsonian opened the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Regardless of where you go or how you do it, what is important is that we continue to learn about and share this important history.
At Kennesaw State University, we're honored to help celebrate Juneteenth as it becomes a federal holiday. Growing up in Texas, I was always aware of Juneteenth because it was also my dad's birthday. I knew the day celebrated emancipation, but it was only later that I learned of the holiday's profound history. At KSU, we are dedicated to embracing diverse perspectives and understanding how the past shapes the present. To that end, we are pleased to offer public programming and digital curriculum related to Juneteenth that will be available to faculty, staff, students, and our community, so that we can all learn more about this critical chapter in our nation's history. On behalf of KSU, it is my pleasure to invite you to engage with our campus community in celebrating this important milestone.
To access free resources related to this video and to learn more about Juneteenth, please visit the Museum of History and Holocaust Education's website at historymuseum.kennesaw.edu.